Hi, Holly. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you at Don Mails. I'm here today. I miss you.
Hi, Shelley.
Hi, Anna.
Hi,
Hi,
everyone. Thank you all for attending today's session. Today we're discussing an important module. It's about employment record changes. And without any further introductions, I'm going to get started. Joining me today is Carol Yusuf, the Payroll and Benefits Officer, and Riaz Siddiqui. He is the HR project consultant. Let me just share the screen. Carol or Riaz, can you please confirm that the screen is visible?
Yes.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, it's good.
All right. So let me just move some things around here. So today we're going to discuss about employment record changes. A few things I would like to discuss before I get into more details. Chronos action versus staff action forms actions, choosing the right actions and keeping in mind payroll dates. First of all, Chronos action versus staff. Everything should be captured in Chronos except the co-op students unpaid and anything that's additional agreements or employment agreements. For example, if we have a full-time regular employee that has an additional casual contract, the full-time account or profile, if you wish, will be kept in Chronos, and everything that's related to that role will be actioned in Chronos. But anything that's additional to that casual contract will be taken care in a staff action form software. Just because anything that we add in Chronos will override the previous information. So we're going to keep what's the most important in Chronos, if you wish, and also that's the longest. Because, for example, let's say a person is under two contracts, both of them are temporary. If the contract that's in Chronos is ending sooner than the staff action form, and they're already set up like that in Chronos, the moment you are terminating that contract in Chronos, you're not supposed to terminate that employee. You're supposed to transfer them to the secondary contract and keep that employee active in the system, because theoretically that person is still with Achēv. Do I have any questions about this part of the training? Carol, I don't hear you. I can hear you from next door, but not the microphone. That's okay.
What about a rehire? Is that not
For a rehire, exactly the same thing. So when somebody is hired, let's say applied in Chronos, they will not be able to rehire them. There's going to be a glitch in the system. So if the candidate, so we have to be careful on the report when we're hiring them, because they will identify themselves as previously worked for Achēv or TCT in the brackets. So at that point, you are to contact HR, first of all, to make sure that they left in good standing. And secondly, you'll have to complete a staff action form for that scenario. And based on that, we're going to hire them manually in the system in Chronos, because Chronos will find out that this person was already an employee, so cannot be a candidate as well. So we cannot rehire an ex-employee in Chronos. It has to be done manually. Thank you, Carol, for that question. It was a good question. So that's that. Now, choosing the right action in Chronos is also important. Please inform us of any changes that are happening within your department, because it's very important for, obviously, for payroll reason and contracts, drafting and all that. But what I mean by choosing the right action is you'll have your HR available actions listed in alphabetical order, whatever applies to your role, if you're a supervisor, manager, senior leader. Unfortunately, they're in alphabetical order, and first of them are dismissals. So dismissals are termination when we fire someone, and I have more details on the next one. So make sure when there's an end of contract is a termination, not a dismissal. And in the red, it's telling you what form is used for each of them. It's kind of detailing. So I know a lot of employees had or supervisor mistaken the dismissal with termination. They're afraid of the word termination. But scroll down and you'll see all your actions in Kronos. So you will choose the right one. So these are the available actions in Kronos, change employment records. And in this specific action, you can change a lot of things, budget, title, location, etc. Make sure, and I'm going to get into more details when I have the slide, that you go through all the steps when you're submitting the change employment record. Dismissal, as I was talking about, it's only about filing when we let someone go. When you terminate someone, it's referring to end of contract, resignation, retirement. So use terminate action for these items. And red circle or unred circle someone. So it's referring when an employee is overpaid or her pay rate exceeds the maximum salary set for that particular position, meaning that he or she kept her salary from a previous higher paid job. The employee is ineligible for future pay increases, including performance-based or general salary increases, until his colleagues or her colleagues' rates in that particular role aligns with the employee. So basically, if someone was on a particular role, let's say a coordinator, that program ended in the past with TCT, this coordinator was transferred for a career specialist role. We red circled the salary, which meant we didn't deduct from the salary. We left the same salary in payroll, but we red circled that employee, meaning that we would not give any further increases, GSA increases, etc., until all the career specialists within his band are picking up to the rate that this coordinator is at. Now, I would certainly encourage you before the GSA to look at all your staff accounts and see who's red circle and who's not. Maybe you need to unred circle someone, or meaning removing the red circle, and meaning that this person is now eligible for an increase. So usually that would be a communication with your manager. You look at the rates and you look at the band. But what I would like to say, it's a big exercise that's usually happening before the GSA, which is in around March. So it's not something that you do every day. Now, we get into more details about requesting changes to an employment. And you're familiar with this slide because it's part of your manual. And it's telling you in detail where you go, and it's mandatory steps. So basically, you go to the HR actions. You will go by available actions. You scroll down and you find your action, exactly the one that you need to use. You'll select the employee name and effective date when this change is taking effect, and you'll continue. Your forms will be different depending on your account. If you're a supervisor, a senior manager, or senior leader, but you'll have them all available there. When you start an HR action, you'll have a summary of, like, if you wish, a mini manual here that will give you more details of what to change and, you know, the salary and all that, what you need to enter. So it's very, you know, informative, and it's for your own use. A tip here is anytime you see 1900s, don't modify that year, don't add and change something. And it's telling you also in the manual where not to click add button. As a rule of thumb, every time you see 1900s, think of history, and you don't want to change that, and don't modify 1900s. So these are the steps: reviewing the instructions, then you select the right request options. Once you select the requested option, let's say you want to update employee data, you will select from the drop-down changing salary. You can do that, or others, or multiple changes. And when you are into the action itself, make sure you follow each step. So you're at the first step, You modify if you need to, then continue. If you don't need to modify anything, just click on continue. And you'll notice that all the steps will be check marked in green. If you're not going step by step, you will not be able to submit the action. You're going to have gray out that button and you won't be able only to save, but that doesn't mean that you submitted it. So just make sure. So now we're talking about salary information. You already have the compensation structure here and what it's there already. You don't edit the current line. Never edit a current line. Always go by add, because you already have history here of your increases for this specific employee. You will add, and another window will be open, and it's going to ask you effective from when, what's the reason why you're requesting this change in salary, what's the salary amount, and all that. Now, in case of a change in employment, let's say you're changing a casual employee to temporary, obviously you will, in the history, you'll have hourly rate here. Now you're going to want to put a salary per year. And you'll use the examples that are given in the summary and also in the manual. So for salary, this is how you set up. You put annual salary per year. And for casual, hourly rate per hour. Keep in mind that when you put an hourly rate, that's without the vacation pay. ADP and Carol will add to this $25.50 a vacation pay rate. So this is just the raw without the vacation pay. So once you add the new line and you enter all this information, you click OK, and then you'll save it and submit. Now, if the change is so this was the first step. The next step that you're going to be shown when you want to change the employment record, is it reporting structure? Is it changing the reporting structure? If it doesn't change, just click continue. If it changes, update it. A tip here, the reporting structure should continue. You never should have an empty space like here. So if you have two managers, manager 1 and 2 would be here. If you have 3 managers, 1, 2, and 3 will be here. If you have only 1 manager, you only have it here. And then continue. Then the next thing is the department and location. Is this changing within this action? Do you want to change anything about that? Change it. If not, click continue. Next one will be other information, like job title, and it's going to be, if that's changing, you'll have to choose from the inventory from Kronos, which is here, this icon. So by clicking here, you'll find the title that you are looking for. If you don't have it, you'll have to contact HR in advance, so we add that into the inventory. You cannot type in, so it has to be by selection. Then employee type, if it's full-time regular that you're changing now, or a temporary moving to a casual, whatever the case is. Pay type, salary or hourly. Again, do not add here. Go by the icon and select another type of benefit profile. Don't add, never add. I've noticed a lot of supervisors are using this wrongly, but please don't do that. And also the performance review profile. Now if it's changing, again, you can change or not change anything and continue if there's no changes to be done. Now long-term leave. If somebody is on long-term leave, you can put start date. Let's say by tomorrow, somebody's going to be on long-term leave and it's going to return back by January. And you put that date. Obviously, in collaboration with HR, you want to ensure that we receive the documentation, the doctor notes, and everything is in order. Now, because you put someone on leave here, let's say, for example, you'll have to change the account status on leave. So you have to remove the active and put on leave, and then save and continue. That's in case if you want to change something here. Next step would be contract end date. If it's an extension of a contract, you'll enter here the extension date, if it's an extension, or if it's a contract end date. Or if somebody is not on a, let's say that you're transferring someone for full-time temp to full-time regular, you will remove the contract end date for this account of this specific employee, because now this employee doesn't have an end date contract anymore. they are full-time now. So just make sure, the reason why you're going through all these steps and all this information is that anything that is related to this change, it should be changed. And you're prompted with, okay, is it the contract end date needs to be updated? Is it the location has to be updated? Is it the supervisor or the budget code, and etc. So it's prompting you with everything. So there's a reason why you have to go through all these steps, and you are not allowed to submit until you check all these steps. So contract end date, we're clear with that. Next is to upload any documents that are related to this change, and continue. And you'll have the upload document button to upload any documents. Okay, oops, I think I went too far back. Okay, 8. So changing the home cost center. A very important and very often used action is for this, for changing the budget, the home cost. Home cost, if you don't have any additionals, will be at 100% at whatever it's listed as default cost center. If there's a split, let's say it's a 50-50 split, you'll add the second budget here as a wage allocation 1. And let's say you put 50% here when you're prompted with all the details. That means 50% is remaining in the home cost center. And this is how you calculate the splits. If you don't have any wage allocation 1, that means 100% everything goes to the home cost center. You can add a new budget code. So let's say if you have only 100% here and you add 1, it's going to deduct automatically. If you add a new one as a wage allocation 2, whatever you put, like 20% in the wage allocation 2, will be deducted from the home budget. So the home cost budget will be less and less, more additional budgets you add. And that's the way you calculate. So it's very important that the begin date for the scheduled earning is the new budget start date, and end date, leave it blank. The moment when you want to close a specific split, that's when you add an end date to it. Do I have any questions at this point? Because the budget change, it's very important and you're going to use it a lot of many times. I don't seem to hear a lot of questions, and I don't have anything under the chats. What I would like to give as an example here for a split budget, home cost center is a 50, wage allocation 1, 47.5, wage allocation 2 is 2.5. It's adding to 100%. If by mistake you put too much here, home cost center will suffer from it. But it's always gonna, it has to add, it's gonna give you even error if you're not adding up to 100%. And then there's another example of 50-50, which is a very easy one. Updating the percentage for splits in the existing budget. So when you want to update an existing budget, you go to the currently scheduled, you select the wage allocation that you want to update by going to the 3 dots, and you go in and you update begin date and end date, because you might want to change the whole thing. And then as of today, you're changing this, and don't put an end date for the end date of the budget. And it's telling you what to leave blank and what to update. Every scheduled pay has to be there. And then the new budget, you can update it from the drop down. Please make sure that the budget, if it's a new budget, it has been communicated in advance to HR, because we need to update Kronos and ADP. As you know, the procedure is first you go to finance with the new budget. Finance will set it up, will let HR know, and we'll do it automatically. You can check with us if we receive it, but the procedure is you go to finance first, to Elaine to be most exact. And they know the procedure that they'll have to let us know, and we'll update accordingly. So don't come to us first, go to them first, because that's the step number 1. So that's update percentage splits, and this is update home cost center. So for the updating the home cost center, you go to you have to locate the changing home cost center and or budget splits. You want to ensure that you're under currently scheduled, and view selected and update it from there, from the drop down. Just ensure that you're always under the currently scheduled in order to see the current. If you are on the you drop down, there is another drop down that says all. In the all, you'll see even the previous one, the history that are ended, and it can be confusing for you. So always ensure that you select currently scheduled. So it's easier for you to see whatever it's right now set up for that specific employee. Updating the cost center and current budget splits. So when you want to end the current budget split, again, you go to the currently scheduled, you locate that specific wage allocation, and you will update the budget end date. Begin date, don't change it. Then there's another options of, if you need to do that, start new budget split. When you have to start a new budget split, you locate the changing home cost center and click on new earning. So you'll have to select new earning button, and then you'll be prompted with the information to be added. You'll have to add the beginning start date, leave the end date empty. It's gonna be a percentage of earning, every scheduled pay, and all that, as prompted and as per manual. Go step by step and you'll be fine. You'll have to enter, of course, the percentage of the budget split. Removing cost centers. So when you remove a cost center, again, you'll need to locate the home cost center, currently scheduled. You have to open by clicking the three dots by editing. And once you go to the scheduled earning again, do not change the start date, the beginning date, update the end date. End it as, let's say, for today. And it's going to be removed from the currently scheduled view. It's going to be history now. Things to remember. The total for the home cost center will always equal 100%, as given the example. If the budget is split between two cost centers, then only one wage allocation should show, like this, wage allocation 1. The remaining will go automatically to the home cost center. Begin date must be provided whenever adding or changing a wage allocation. End date must be provided only when closing or discontinuing a wage allocation. As usual, the notes in the actions are always very, very useful. So, and it's a cross-check for HR to see if you were successful in changing the Kronos form, and we're checking that against your notes. So it's always good to have the notes. Obviously, you need to save the form at the end. And as you notice, when you're submitting a change of employment request, you'll have this green checks. If you don't have that green checks, you won't be able to submit. It's going to be gray out. And you'll notice some of them are not check marked. So make sure that you do that and then submit form. Approving. So there's bell icons for every level of approval. So supervisor will go through the bell icon, view details, will be able to view and view workflow and approve it. Same for the request that's submitted by senior manager, director, manager, will be a bell icon. They'll have to locate the request and approve it. If it's submitted by a senior leader, pretty much the same. It's just separated by levels, whatever applies for each level. So depending if you're a senior leader, manager, or coordinator will apply to you. But basically all of the workflows are, you have to go to the bell icon, locate the review, locate the request, review it, and approve it. I will, oops. So this is not longer valid. Everybody can submit a request to change the salary. We had it removed for a while, but no longer there. So it's everybody is able to request a change in salary, even the coordinators. A way to view all open and submitted requests are go to the HR actions. You will have a few tabs available. So you'll go to available when you want to submit a new one, but then you'll have the submitted one and you'll be able to see, open this Sailor Mail. See, this workflow says that it was submitted. And you can go to the 3 dots beside and view details, and you can view what you submitted. Or you can see that it's not submitted here, and then you know, oops, something happened. I had actually a situation today when I was running a report before payroll. I always run reports to see what's not completed in the system within this pay period, December 1st to 15th. There was one action that was not submitted. So I reached out to the manager, and the manager, what she or he did, she skipped steps. So she was not able to submit. She just saved the form. So she was able to go here, go to the 3 dots and make sure that she's submitting it. So it's always good to check once you submit something if it went through. Help with HR actions. We correct an error in an HR action so correct an error in an HR action request that has already been submitted. We can view the workflow to get the name of the next level approval and inform the next level approver or HR by adding a note to the form. So if you miss something, you can watch the workflow, see where it's at. And let's say it went to your supervisor, you can say, can you please, Teresa, can you please reject that action that I just sent? I want to correct something. So she'll reject it, I'll correct it, and I'll send it back. Or she can correct it, or if it went through already in HR already, just let me know and I can correct it at that time. Changing correct effective date. The effective date must be entered correctly. Otherwise, the changes will not be transferred properly to ADP for payroll purpose. If the effective date of an action or termination, anything can be incorrect, it's not going to be transferred correctly. So once it's submitted and approved, Riaz, correct me here if I'm wrong, we cannot correct the effective date. We'll have to delete that action and submit it again. Am I right here?
Yes, but
Yes.
like if again, I think you can update it. You can check it in the next. I think you can update it later on if somebody told you. But if it is not indicated, then you cannot do that.
I think I cannot, that specific request, I cannot update it. I can correct it in the system by submitting a new request to correct the previous.
Yeah. So like specifically for this one, I know like there are different procedures for different actions. So maybe it might not be like that. But again, it's only you, the last person, who can check that. And if it is grayed out, then definitely you cannot do that. And in that scenario, you have to get this submitted again and complete it.
Yes. Again, there's times when supervisors are submitting multiple actions for the same thing, so by mistake, and I can remove the duplication. Most certainly, I would see them when I'm running my reports before payroll. I'll see, okay, this has not been submitted, what's happening? And I reach out to the managers. So if you see an email from me asking questions, okay, is this still valid or it's a duplication? I do that before payroll due dates. And I can remove it. I can delete it myself, but I want to make sure that it's a duplication and I'm not deleting something that should happen. Contact HR obviously for any help. And include complete cost center information. So when you're selecting the default cost center, don't select titles. From the dropdown, make sure that you have the project and category. Again, if you don't find it, let us know. And please always include names in notes, and not only names, include information. When you are submitting anything in Kronos, ensure that you are mentioning your intention, as I mentioned earlier. I just want to have as much information possible so I can cross-check and ensure that everything is correct. Now, we talked a little bit about termination of an employee. Do not use this process if you request a dismissal or long-term leave, including maternity leave. For long-term leave and maternity leave will be a request for change of record request, change of employment request, because you'll just enter the date of mat leave starting and ending, or long-term leave. So that's not a termination. A termination would be when it's an end of contract, when it's a resignation, and this is basically it. So choose the right one, as I mentioned earlier. So termination would be for end of contract, and always effective date must be the employee's last working day. So when you select Popeye the Sailor, select, okay, today is the last day, so effective as of today, and then continue. You'll have, obviously, if you're a supervisor, you'll have the action called terminate employee started by supervisor. If you're manager, will be manager director. If you're senior leader, will be terminate employee started by senior leader. You'll be prompted by all this information that you have to enter. And obviously, you'll have to make sure that you select all that are with asterisks. So it's a termination, when is the termination date, the reason, resignation, for example, voluntary leave, obviously, if he or she gave any notice, 2-week notice, any comments here. Ensure that you check mark rehireable if that's the case. If not, then don't check that mark. And upload the documents like termination letter, departure checklist, and resignation letter if that's the case. So under the upload documents, ensure that you upload anything that's needed. Save the form, as I mentioned, add the notes in the comment area. You can also add notes and submit the form. So once you submit the termination request, a supervisor manager, if it's requested by a supervisory manager, there's action to be taken again. Bell icon, my to-do list, actions to be taken by the senior leader. When submitted by a senior manager director that reports directly to a senior leader, again, what are the actions? They will have to go into the bell icon. They have my to-do items and being approved. When the request is submitted by a senior leader, the senior leader will be notified via an email when a new HR action is submitted by a senior leader. So that would be Teresa. Teresa will have to approve that. So anything that's submitted by a senior leader goes straight to Teresa. Also, all the dismissals are going straight to Teresa. Termination, which is end of contract, are not straight to Teresa unless it's submitted by a senior leader. But a dismissal, which is firing someone, will go straight to Teresa for her approval. Why? Because we want to ensure that when we terminate someone, we have all the documents that are needed. So we don't want to be so easy on dismissing employees for cause or not for cause, doesn't matter, but we want to make sure that we follow the right protocols. So at any point you can view the workflow to see where the action is at. Payroll will terminate the employee in ADP after the last pay. So please, that was one of my the last things on the first slide. Be aware of the payroll dates, meaning that we have a schedule of payroll, and ensure that only when Carol is working on the payroll will changes will be in effect in ADP. As we know, we have a ADP payroll schedule. So refer to that schedule when you are asking Carol, how come I still see this employee under my team in ADP? Also be aware that you can select all employees or active employees. So even in ADP, you can select all employees, which will falsely tell you that a terminated employee is still in your team. You'll see all your current and past employees. So ensure that you select current employees even in ADP. So another thing that I probably mentioned about employees with more than one contract, termination request will be submitted only upon the expiry of the last contract. So if this person has another contract in staff action form, keeping track in staff action form, will have to transfer that instead of terminating the employee in Kronos, transfer that casual contract in SF, transferring the information into Kronos, so that employee is not terminated. For employees on term contract with no extension, termination request must be submitted as soon as notification is received, obviously by the supervisor or the manager. And the last update that we had in Kronos is that once HR is approving the termination or dismissal, IT will receive automatically an email to terminate the account for this specific employee. Now, supervisor need to make sure that they contact IT for forwarding the email or for specific drives that that employee had access to. So it's still good practice to reach out to IT and say, okay, my understanding is that you received dismiss this account. However, how about this drive? Is this discontinued? I want to make sure. So it's always good to ensure also the cell phones and all the technology that's been assigned to that specific employee. But that's all into the offboarding form that you need to upload once you terminate an employee or dismiss an employee. So that's part of the documentation that you have to put together. You'll have a list of that will remind you of all the steps that you need to take. And dismissing an employee, it's telling you the action that you need to use, select the employee effective as of when. Depending of your account profile, you'll have access to dismissal employee started by a supervisor if you're a supervisor, started by a senior manager or director if you're a senior manager or director, or senior leader if you are a senior leader. And it will give you the effective date. You'll have to follow the prompts, continue, give the details, go through the both steps, make sure that you click on both steps. Do not click on rehireable if you fire this employee. Make notes as possible. And you'll have a lot of documentations and termination letter to upload in this case. Save the form, add notes as mentioned, and save and submit. Depending again who's submitting the termination, will go to HR regardless. HR will be informed at that point. And also the senior leader will have to approve. So it has a workflow, so it's not that much to discuss about that. And as I mentioned, manager will have to coordinate with IT and administration to cancel or forward email accounts and return any assigned equipment, parking passes, cell phone, etc. If a termination is planned, IT has to be contacted prior to the termination, so they are aware that maybe as of tomorrow afternoon, they'll have to terminate the accounts for this specific employee. So just preparation in advance, it's the key with any termination or dismissal. Red circle employee, so we talked about the red circle and the fact that that's usually once per year we look at the accounts when we are having a mass increase. And it's an HR action that's called red circle employee. It's called like that. You're going to click on start. You select the name effective from when. You'll continue and you'll select from the drop down red circle. You'll put the comments and you'll submit. Now, if you want to remove the red circle, let's say that specific employee reached out the threshold of the rest of his team. This employee is already red circle. You still have to submit an action, but when you're gonna get to the default salary status, you'll see that the red circle is there. Drop down And you'll have to select nothing. It's going to be blank. So you'll have to select blank and then save and submit. So you're basically removing the red circle status from that employee and submit the form. Any questions about red circling? I think it's pretty clear. Now let's talk about workflow delegation. This usually happens when for vacation, when a manager goes on vacation and they want to delegate a workflow to someone. It tells you exactly like in the manual. You go to My Info tab, My HR, Delegation, Add New button. You delegate to whom. It's going to be another window open, and you can select the name. What type of workflows you want to delegate, all workflows or only specific ones. Date, from what date to what date. This leave blank, the workflow group, and add. Delegation is not available for job requisition workflow. So we'll just have to manually basically change the names in the job requisition if you're going on vacation. Instead of your name, we'll put somebody else's name. So I can do that. That's the workaround. So we were here. These are just appendixes who to contact for assistance, but you guys already know that. The manual contains some common system icons that are really good to go through them and know when you are working in live in Kronos, you know what each icon is used for. To pin a window so you can see it, collapse, help, employee information, quick links, edit, and all that. So there are 3 pages of icons. I'm not going to go through each of them, but familiarize yourself with them because they're very, very useful. I think I have about 4 pages. A very important, I guess, part of this training would be to let you know that you can log in from your mobile device and use, for the company, use this code when you log in first time. And you'll be able to see if you're on vacation or if you're traveling or you're commuting from one office to another. You'll be able to see what's happening in Kronos. You'll be checking your actions. And that's my end of the training on this specific change records. Any questions? Do I have any questions? It was quite straightforward, but I would like to see if I have any. It looks like no questions.
See
Shelley?
any chat.
Okay, I have one. Oh, thanks, Anka. It was very straightforward. That was a good, so I'm gonna stop recording if I can only find. Stop sharing and stop